My name is Randy C. Pollack, and I'm the president of the Federal Bar Association's Northern District of California chapter. To begin with, I'd like to welcome those of you who are members of the Federal Bar and encourage those of you who are not yet members to please join. The Federal Bar Association is dedicated to promoting the welfare, interest, education, and professional development of attorneys who practice in federal court. The Federal Bar has over 19,000 members nationally and over 2,000 members of the judiciary. The Federal Bar serves as a catalyst for communication between the bar and the bench, and as well as the public and private sectors. I encourage those of you to join because the FBA works to protect the public through the rule of law and serves education, leadership, and non-adversary, non-partisan advocacy. Those of you who are law students or law clerks, your membership is free. If you're a law student, you get free membership for 3 years of law school as well as your first year of practice. As president, last year and this year, I worked to present quality programs and offering at least one program a month, if not two. You have in the flyers that you picked up a list of our upcoming programs, and I encourage you to go to as many of them as you can. The genesis for this program was an article that I read in the Daily Journal in August of 2024 about the League Council Summit over a weekend. I thought the program sounded fascinating, and I thought it would be a great program to share with those of you who are members of the Federal Bar, and I wish that I had attended it. To that end, we have an extraordinary group of panelists here today that you will hear from. I could go on and on talking about the resumes, so I'll try and be as brief as possible just so that we can start the program. Judge Beth Freeman was appointed to the bench by President Obama in 2014. A graduate of Berkeley and Harvard Law, she was in private practice for several years before she served as the Deputy County Counsel in San Mateo and then on the San Mateo Superior Court from 2001 to 2012. She is currently in our San Jose division. Darylyn Dury is one of the top IP attorneys in the United States and is recognized as the icon of IP litigation. Benchmark litigation noted that going against her was like going against a boxer in which you know you're going to get hurt. A graduate of Berkeley Law, Darylyn co-founded Dury Tangri in 2002, and that later joined Morrison & Foerster in 2023. Renee Brown is a graduate of Stanford Law and has a bachelor's and a master's in nuclear engineering from MIT. Her present position is head of litigation, IP litigation at LinkedIn. In that position, she oversees the global patent and trademark portfolios and strategy for LinkedIn. Our moderator today is Jennifer Serafin, who is a member of the executive committee of the Federal Bar Association. Jennifer is a partner at Turner, Boyd & Serafin and is a lead trial counsel in cases throughout the United States. She is a founding member of the League Council Summit and was recently recognized as one of the top women lawyers by the Daily Journal in 2024. Now I'll turn the program over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you everyone for coming. It's really nice to see this many people. So when Randy called me to share this article, I said, I know exactly who should be on this panel. And I said, I don't want to talk about clothes. I don't want to talk about what we wear to court. I want to have people who talk frankly about the problems that still exist and give some solutions. And this panel, not just the actors that you just heard, but I think the strongest thing about all of them is that they will speak frankly and they have experiences that all of us can benefit from, both their own experiences and the experiences that they've seen in their careers. We have the perspective of the court, in-house, and law firms, and we hope to talk to all of those tonight. So, before we started when we talked to your moms, I asked for some audience participation. And the audience participation is to ask, what do you think if I say lead counsel? What does lead counsel mean? Not just first year, but lead counsel.
to put on every call. And we want them coming in at strategic times. Also, they're often too busy, right, to be there on the day-to-day. But you know they're going to be there on the day for you.
You want to say the big picture, that the launches trial strategy, and then we talk about how that maybe
I think that they generally have a good sense for whether this case has been settled or not. They may not be always the person settling the case, but they have a gut feel for that, and they understand how much risk we're willing to bear. They've probably been around the block with us as a client before, and so they get that. I've been at places where we take everything to trial, so that's what we do, and I've also been at places where it's like, let's do it for as cheap as possible. Quickly, because you can't pay the fees either. So it really depends. And I think that is the key thing to being the lead counsel, is the person who really kind of gets where this is going.
So Darren, no one can be the icon as a person. When you are working with two people, what do you see in someone that makes you think this is the person who's going to really have to go?
That's a great question. I think trust is probably the number one thing. Is this someone who I think people will trust, a client will trust, judge will trust, jury will trust? To do two things actually, to give the straight bill, and also to own it. And I think the owning it is incredibly important. So when I look at associates, that's a huge part of what I'm looking for is, are you someone I can trust? That if you tell me something, I know it's going to be true. And are you someone who I think the sort of other stakeholders are also going to feel that they're able to trust?
It's not really a test, it's how I characterize someone, and I call it a post-it note test. If someone were to hand me a post-it note in court at the podium, whatever you did out loud.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a huge amount of trust to stand up on something that I wouldn't be inclined to say, and someone hands me that post-it note. If I know that's a pretty good sign that you have that trust that you can make.
And I think that's awesome. And that's a great test, because I actually can't imagine doing that. So yes. I have permission to trust. I don't know if I can do that. But I think it's both. You have to substantively earn the trust, and you have to project the thing that will cause people to trust you. And that can look very different for different people. And I've seen people who I think exude trust in incredibly different ways with very different kinds of presentation. But I think if you think about what makes you willing to repose confidence in someone, that's a good way to start thinking about your own presentation for someone. I would also add judgment to that. Because there are people that I trust to always be right, they'll give you the right details, but they don't have the judgment I wouldn't be their post-it note out loud.
So I will say that from my perspective, the person who appears to be the lead counsel isn't always someone who would have earned your trust or have proven themselves under your standards. And for many of you in your firms or whatever work environment you're in, you gnash your teeth at seeing people who, in your mind, maybe don't deserve to be in that chair because they haven't earned the trust of the judge. Maybe they have the trust of the client, and that may trump everything. It depends on the client. But they may not have the respect think more of an instinct to be sincere in the presentation, a level of honesty maybe, that I think may come naturally. But the problem is that it all depends on who the audience is, as to whether that's being conveyed and how it's being conveyed. Are you that charismatic leader who grabs the attention? Or are you the person who builds slowly and you take people along with you to the end? And I'll tell you, I've had cases where, a case I'm thinking of, a patent case, it was all men on it, so it was not a gender issue at all. But I was very drawn to the plaintiff's lawyer with a big personality, exuding self-confidence, filling the room. And I just thought, wow, he is amazing. And over the unending motions to dismiss, summary judgment, all the way through trial, I realized that the other guy was very confident that was never the issue. More soft-spoken, very sincere, took time to kind of grow on me. He was able to ultimately puncture the balloon of the ego of the other lawyer who I had been drawn to originally. And it was eye-opening to me. I mean, in a sense, as the judge in the hearing gallery just watching all these personalities go on. But I had the luxury of 2 or 3 years to watch all this unfold. The jury gets 2 weeks, and that's a big difference. But styles, there's no one style. And sometimes you just have to keep with your own style and break through on it.
So we have some statistics, and I'll jump ahead. So I tried to find statistics on first-year trial lawyers and how many were women, and I couldn't find any, because it doesn't matter who's wealthy, counsel, and marketing motivator, because that could be used as the first person to file something. We do know that despite improvements, women are still not doing as well as they should. More women in
told Mr. A, what was I supposed to do? But if I took a chance, and taking a chance can have a lot of different dimensions, right? It could be the firm, it could be the person, it could be the woman. If I took a chance, somebody's going to be able to look at me after and say, well, why did you do that? And so I think there is a lot of very rational risk aversion that is just built into the system. And so when you're sort of thinking about what is the composition of the trial team and how are you going to pitch the client on, what ought to happen, part of what I think about is how do we give the client comfort, not just by saying it's going to be great, but by saying here's some things that we can do so that you will have not just sort of my word, but something you're going to be able to point to as a reason why you made this decision. We always do mock trials, right? Probably not a surprise. I think those are great opportunities to showcase people. I don't like asking juries to give feedback on the lawyers live in front of the lawyers and the clients. I've had that happen. It's excruciating. But I think getting feedback, sort of privately that you can use and share can be really helpful in terms of getting people comfortable. And also just having the client, I always want the client to come to the mock and watch it. And part of it is so they're going to be able to say, I saw it, and I saw what the result was, so I have a reason for this. I've had that go so far. The mock. Yeah. Where they, you put all your cards on this one person. People hate them. Yeah, well, right, that's what I'm saying you are, right? Yeah. But then when you do, that's a really tough call, especially with somebody that you put a lot of time and effort into, and to switch horses at that stage of the trial is also incredibly risky. Yeah. It's tough.
Well, we were all people that learned feedback, right? I mean, we do not really
But just, you see what his face, that was awesome.
Well,
Yeah, a lot of the people at that point in their career, they never had great feedback. That's right, yes.
yeah, I mean, I had this quote in this competition, policy firms are not allowed to pronounce your client's team. We went by anyone that an experienced trial lawyer. Oh, sorry, Karen. Thank you. I should have said at the beginning, if anybody has a question or wants
Yeah.
to add something, or turn the conversation in a way, speak up. I won't say, please do it, and challenge you to do it. That's all.
And can I just say, awesome. Can I just say on some sort of practical things around sort of what you do, I mean, posit that it is true that there's going to be some bias in favor of sort of what I'll call the modal decision, the safe decision, whether it's for institutional self-protective reasons, whatever. How do you get over that? One thing you can, and in particular, if you are on a case that's going to trial and you are thinking to yourself, by way of example, I know the case much better than that senior person does. I think that I'm ready to do this thing. What do you do? One thing I think you can do is ask for a long time and show your stuff. One thing you can do is think about, are there ways to split up roles so that you're not coming in and saying, I want to leave and I want to do all of it, which may not be realistic. But can I split a closing? And that's a way to give an opportunity for people to see you doing lead counsel things without sort of coming in and trying to say, you've got to put all of your chips on me. And again, I think from an in-house risk aversion point of view, that can be dismissed.
And of course, you need the senior person to be willing to give up some of the spotlight. So we all know clients come to the firm for the senior person who they know, and that's the person they expect to be in the lead chair on the first day of trial. So somewhere along the line, that person needs to be able to bring other people along. it's not just the client's job to do it. It is not, you can't do it yourself if you're trying to get on that escalator to the top. You need someone to reach out a hand who will say, I will step aside from this summary judgment motion, and I will support you. I will be right there, but you're going to argue it, and you're going to be able to say, I've done that.
Yeah, because it's not all of a sudden I want to try a case. I mean, there's a few steps you have to take before then. And I think towards the end, we're going to talk about some scenarios of how do you think ahead? How do you start thinking in this direction when you're working with your associate? Because that's really when you have to start thinking about it. You can't wait until you're at on the trial team and say, well, I think I feel like doing this because no one can take you seriously. So we have a question. She was sharing it back.
Yeah, do you find that there's a difference between the subject matter of the case in terms of whether or not there's more men and women involved in a more leadership role?
That's a really interesting question. So she
Oh, yeah.
asked if you find the subject matter of the case, changes whether there are more lead counsel as women or men.
so when things are not right, you know, I come in and like when things are not, I want to go fix the things because they're not right and it annoys me. And I would really have to train myself to not do that. Because 100% will scale off of that in a very general way. And so I really try to train myself. And it is things like in conference room, like don't clean up after yourself. I think people don't do that. But I think you have to really sort of read the room and realize if I'm in the moment and I'm running around, you know, thinking about everybody's coffee cup, guess what? I'm the person who cleans up the coffee cup.
And if you want to be lead counsel, you're going to have a routine behind you. You know, who's your number two? Who's that person that you can really count on? Who's the person who you know is going to clean up the coffee, right? You know, you got to have that person number two.
Right. Make that person the guy. Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah. No, and I think, and actually, yeah, and I've had conversations with men on case teams around that issue of like, because there's a lot of versions of the copy pass. It's also not a task list, right? That's also a version of the copy pass. That you gotta be thoughtful about sort of what's going on at that level and making sure that it's actually working.
I have a question. So, I know some of the talk is focused around kind of how to present in a way that juries or the judge might slot you in to what they expect as lead counsel. And I'm also wondering, you know, we talk a lot about being authentic, and we all have different authentic presentation styles. What do you see as the role of the senior leader at a firm or in-house counsel or judge to foster participation by trial attorneys who may project confidence in a way that they traditionally see as confidence? What is our role as supervisors, as experienced lawyers, to widen what is seen as persuasive, control, you know, admirable, those things? How can we do that? Because not everybody fits into certain molds, for example, of flashy dressing, things that are local.
I was going to say, I think that judges can, so there's a lot that's packed into that. I think judges can do a lot at argument to evince an interest in hearing from people who are presenting in the way that you were describing. And I've actually seen judges at argument where you've got, you know, I'm just going to say dude A at the podium and person B passing notes and sort of, you know, whatever. And I've seen judges just say, look, can I just hear from that person? Because it seems pretty clear that they're the ones who actually know the answers to the questions. And I actually appreciate that. And it's actually kind of a nice way. I mean, it solves the client problem, right? It's the judge saying, I would like to hear from that person. And obviously a lot of this is different rules that, you know, encouraging, you know, argument opportunities for, you know, lawyers with fewer years of practice. The second part of your question is that how do we, I didn't even put it this way, but open the aperture for what it means to be effective. Boy, I think that's a lot. Because the people that you are talking to, and certainly in a trial context, you know, you don't have the opportunity to go school them in, you know, what it means to be an effective advocate. You do have the ability to look at them and think, what are the range of people who are going to be able to talk to these people? And, you know, I actually think juries are, generally speaking, pretty open-minded in terms of who they're willing to listen to in the first instance. I think there's a lot of research that women can lose credibility more quickly. And it's harder to gain trust. And there's just a bunch of like the journal research on that. But I think from an open, just, and I don't mean open, or I just mean like an initial presentation presentation point of view, I actually think that juries are by and large, like, it's also important to them. All of us are doing this thing that is so far outside their experience generally that they're pretty open to whoever's going to get it.
But again, I think part of your question was about, what's the responsibility of, the lead people or the more senior people at the firm, to be open to that. I think it's important for the lead person to try to give opportunities to people, but the truth is those opportunities can be very, very limited. And so if you want them, it's your responsibility, it's your career, you need to ask for it. Because it just is not realistic to think that anyone else is going to look out for you. You got to look out for number one. And if you are not asking for opportunities and the person next to you is, I'm not going to spread it. I was a partner. Am I worried about spreading it around equitably? It's a nice to have, but frankly, the pyramid builds itself. A lot of these people are not going to be here in a couple of years. I'm going to concentrate my attention on the people who really, are putting in the time and effort and are trying very hard to be that person. Because honestly, a lot of people, they put in their time, they're alone, and then they're out. And that is a perfectly fine career path. That's great. It worked out great for me. But you want to spend your time on the people who really want to be lead counsel, and it's so hard to figure out who those people are. They got to tell you.
I think it also can be really hard if you're in a big firm, you're on a big team of 20 lawyers, even if you're in trial, you can be the best at the off-site team. It is indispensable to what's going on in court, but you're never seen as the person who should be sitting in the courtroom. And making the leap from one siloed job that's critical to a case to the other is hard, because you get pegged as the indispensable person for running the off-site team. And for many people, that's the job they want. And that can be a great job, and it is really important to a case. But it may not be the job you want, and that's never lead counsel. So we're here today to talk about lead counsel, and you need to see and develop in your context what is the path that will get me to the chair I want to sit in. And then, just like it's always been, how did the people who are in those chairs get there? What was their story? What was their path? Did they have a mentor? Are they a white male? Do they play golf with the boss? Do they, whatever your generation is as to what you saw, did they have sharp elbows and knock everybody else out of the way? Did they bring in their own clients? Did they go off to the district attorney and try 12 DUI cases and pick 12 juries, which is more than any of the partners at the firm have ever done? What's the path? And then go out and get your business plan. Go out and do it.
Can I say one more thing about that? Something he said once that really has stuck with me is nobody hires you for what you're bad. They hire you for what you're good at. And the implication of that was spend the time on what you're good at and become really, really, really good at the thing you're good at. Because that's the thing that's going to get you hired. Don't try, you've got a lot of sort of 3s and 7s. Turning the 3s and 5s, nobody's going to care, probably. Turning the 7s into 10s, that was going to get you hired. And that's what's going to ultimately make you successful. And different people can have very different things that they are good at. And depending on the needs of the case, depending on the client, like
right hand. I can't live without you. And they think that's a compliment, because it is in a way a compliment. But what it isn't is making you a first-chair lawyer. And there's also what the second word my mom would call it preschool is. You say to preschoolers, you're so good at setting the table. That's where it is. But let's talk a little bit about family. And when you have a family and you're a woman and someone says, this happened to me, I didn't think you'd want to be away. So I didn't put you on that trial team. We just had a baby. And that was really kind of them. They thought, and quite frankly, it was very kind of them because they were a hot mess. But they shouldn't have made that decision for me, right? That shouldn't be a decision that someone steps in. So I wanted to talk about like how when you, like, have you ever felt like I'm going to do something, like can we be introspective and say, I wanted to help someone, but I did it in the wrong way, right? In the City Council. Or maybe at the time you were talking is maybe I pushed someone to do something they're not that good enough. Maybe I thought they should really, I thought I was giving them an opportunity. I don't know, any comments?
I couldn't wait to get that scream baby house. That was not my reaction at all. Like, please, in next week.
Right, but it would be terrible for them to listen.
But I would tell people that, listen, you have to not wait to get hell on stuff. Please quote me on something. Yeah. I think back to the attorney leave early. That's where we went there, like all here. But I don't realize this is an issue of people at the table. But I actually think that is it's a really important point, and I've actually had to sort of check myself in thinking about people when they come back from maternity leave, and like, I think it's really easy to think, oh, is this okay? Are you sure? And there is a good thing behind that impulse in general. You want to take care of people, and it is a thing that is happening in people's lives. And we've got to be conscious of the disparity. There was an interesting study that came out a few years ago in an academic setting that when men and women they started having mandatory parental leave, essentially. So gender-neutral parental leave, we're going to give everyone the same amount of time, and call it 3 months off. And they did this in an effort to avoid the sort of, childbirth penalty for women, in getting tenure. What they found is that women used the 3 months they had off to take care of their babies, and men used the 3 months to write papers. So it actually had a diverse in terms of the net, because what it meant was the men were getting off their teaching responsibilities of getting on work. So, which to me was just very sobering, because I absolutely would have thought of that as a sort of pro-woman policy, and it completely backfired. And that's just stats. I mean, good hard work, you will look up and read it. And so I have become very wary of those kinds of initiatives, but also two, it requires a lot of, I think, explicit talk. And one of the things I would say about the implicit bias stuff is you only solve the problem if you're willing to start talking about it and making it explicit, which is really hard and really uncomfortable, because the reason we have these implicit biases in part is because they're uncomfortable things. But I think until you start saying it, I think a girl when it comes back from maternity leave, putting her hand and being like, you know what, I want it back, or I don't want to do this. But like, again, Renee's point, saying what we want.
So it also starts with you need to know what you want for your family and your career. Because if you don't know, and then you've got someone who's trying to be nice, but isn't necessarily trying to promote your career, you're not even going to know the shift is happening. Because it's kind of, and you might be ambivalent, and that's fair too. It's hard. I mean, I used to say when my second child was born, I used to say, if I didn't have a job, I would have gone out and gotten one. So, that was my take on it. So working full time was really a non-starter for me. But I didn't travel. I had a different kind of job. So, every family has to decide. And then you got to make it clear. If you're all in, let people know you're all in. And, you don't wait for them to do the guessing game, because it can be fine.
Let's play a game, speaking of games. Play Dear Abby. So it's actually helpful because there's people in the audience at all different levels, and maybe the senior people can look back to when they were young and think about these things, but I made some scenarios. So let's start with our youngest fifth-year associate, large firm. Managed has written a document discovery, has taken one deposition, 74, no motion practice, never got to stand up before. Court sets a hearing on discovery motion involving both document and deposition issues. It's an important deposition. Somebody at a company that is important. How do you, as a fifth year, ask to argue that motion? How do you start that conversation with the boss?
I would agree. I know the issues. I am the best person to argue this, and you should do it. You have a problem with that? Yeah, the people who know me are all nodding, so that's exactly right. And I mean, and like that's what I did. And I think the direct approach, and I will just say, anyone that was speaking into that is like, sure. I mean, that's kind of hard to say no to, right? I mean, unless you think the person really isn't ready, right? If somebody presents it to me that way, odds are I'm going to say, sure, great, do it. I might say, yeah, Joyce.
So oftentimes the response to that wrong is, that would be great if it were up to the end, but the client that actually wants somebody wants to do it, summary judgment, it's important, it's what money, it's blah, blah, blah.
And I have to apply myself. Exactly. You have to, if you can't sell the argument to me, the partner, like, I'm not gonna let you argue anything. This is the most important, probably argument you're gonna make in your career is to get these experiences. So you need to ask and you need to prepare for it. Like,
Well, and I was going to say, but Joyce, my answer to that would be actually what Renee said, which is, I totally get it. Could we set up a mock argument where I can do it for the client? So they can see. And what can we do to get them comfortable? In a problem-solving way, because it may be a fair concern, right? Some clients might be like, Ellis doesn't know. Back to my, like, me, the partner who acts as if it was value. I have to say, like, I don't need to win anything, but there's a lot of things that only I can lose, right? Because if it goes south, I better be the one who did it. So otherwise, the person sitting there is going to be like, why the hell did you not do it, right? As long as you win, it's all good. So it may well be a legit concern, but I think the answer is, okay, fine, I totally get it. Can we set up a meeting with a client and do a mock and let me present it, and then the client make a decision?
Judge, have you ever had people ask if a junior can argue, and then the senior counsel can have an opportunity at the end of the meeting to do that?
Yes, and I think that is the best approach, to ask for that. That gives the client the confidence. I don't know the judge would say no to that, and I think it's the perfect way to handle it, is to just have that backstop. I think that can work well.
When I was a junior lawyer on my first summer judgment, I can't remember how they were having a board there, I didn't like, they were really supportive, this is just all brought it back to me, male attorney, and then he had me practice. I was nervous and I was reading, practicing with him, and I'll never forget, he knew across the table, he took all my notes away, and he put the notes away, and talked about it. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then I got in work and the judge said, not that familiar with this, and so we talk about it, and man, I love that, it's just great. But, you know, you don't have that guy, or, you know, who's willing to give you that, like, help, right? Like, I wasn't as good as, you know, at saying, you know, I did this, I would do it. I probably did say that, but you still have to have people who are willing to help you practice, like, behind the closed door before you get in front of the client. Because it's not always pretty, and we all have to remember it wasn't always pretty the first time you did it, right? You have to have those people, but you have to be willing to put that commitment. I mean, I am 100% prepared when I go into work, and if you're not going to get that commitment. Just never do
so much the better. But if you go in on your own to say, I really appreciate the opportunity to argue this case today, this is one of my first arguments. Just a clue, and then launch into it.
Yeah, and one thing I say to a point, and I don't know how you react to this, I don't know if you're wrong with you, is just say, look, you know, if you want the best associates on your case, they need to get experience, right? Because otherwise, they're not going to be on your case, they're going to be on the case of somebody else, where they're going to get a better experience. So, you know, I actually do think that clients kind of get that, like, law firms have got to develop an integration of talent, and if they don't, they're not going to have anyone to work on their cases, right? You know, so.
But the best thing that you can do to guarantee that that pass goes well is to make sure that on phone calls, on team meetings, they're saying something. I can put a face to the name, better yet, I've actually had a conversation with them. That's really, really important, and that starts from the day one of planning.
Okay, let's jump ahead to our third scenario. This is the tough one. Junior partner, been to trial as a junior associate 3 times, third chair twice, handled pro bono case as first chair. Small case, but important to a client headed to trial. How do you react? Is that anything?
I think it really depends there on whether you're the day-to-day person who talks to the client, or are you not? Because sometimes you can take that question straight to the client. You don't need to ask permission as senior partner. And in some firms, that's not going to go into so far. Yeah, so it really, really depends. But in this situation, I'm guessing that they've probably been a person day-to-day on the case, right? Given the level, and it's an appropriate, you know. Some people are comfortable with I assume I'm going to be doing this, is that okay with you? And other people are just not maybe quite comfortable enough to spin it that way.
But, and I also just look at looking for, just assume it, right? And just do it. And sort of set everything up and act like, of course, that's the thing that's going to happen. And if you have been running the case, I mean, one of the things that's not built into the paper is sort of what your role has been. But if you have been running the case and you have been doing it sufficiently well, that the senior partners are like, which is sort of a big deal.
cases all the time, missing things that you want to do for your family. Those are great, and it's fun, there's nothing more fun than being in trial. Well, you know, it's something that you don't have to do, like someone said, you know, there's lots of roles for really good lawyers. You don't have to be a lead lawyer or sheriff. There's lots of really good roles, and there's also good roles at different times. Just because for a period of your life you decide this is not for you, doesn't mean you're never going to get there. But I do think you have to be intentional about it, and you have to think about what you want, and you're going to have to change in order to get to where you want to be. I did want to mention something else. You have to look at the people you're working for. Are they going to make that room for you? Is there room for you? And we talked about if you're in-house and general counsel is the same age as you, you might not have the opportunity to become general counsel at that company. Not because anybody is being biased, not because anybody doesn't think you're doing a great job, but that person's not retired. Maybe it's kind of like a school teacher. Maybe they don't retire because they're not doing the job. And then you have to be willing to make a move if you want something different. You can build your estate. I had to leave a big firm. I would have been first chair at a big firm right after that because I didn't have people. I had a lot of mentors and I had a lot of people that never experienced, so I don't want to say in that way. But I don't think that the clients who hired that big firm were ever going to give someone their first trial. It wasn't because it was me, it was just giving someone the first trial and really, really hard.
And, you know, being courageous about moving on to a new form, or in some cases, going out on your own. Some people do that. I've seen it work for them, I've seen it not work for them, but that takes a lot of courage.
Absolutely. And then, you know, practice advocacy for yourself just like you do with your clients. I didn't do this. I worked harder for other people than myself. I'll just say that. I worked all the way to the exactly the day and then preparing for this. So I then have a look in my life. And if I could go back and go back and tell you one of the jobs something about, you know, write your business plan and someone talk about it. Think about it and prepare yourself like your own employee. If you go into a partner, a meeting with a partner, and you want something. Don't just go in and say, I want to do it.
And it's one more thing about that is, you know, on the whole, like, show, in some ways I would say show, not ask also. Like, go in and say, I want to argue it because there's this incredibly interesting issue. Here's what I think the judge may be interested in. Here's how I would answer that question. Like, show your confidence as part of your past. And I'm going to be like, wow, like, you're really ready to go and you're ready. Great, awesome. So I agree with all of that and sort of think about how do you build into the request the demonstration for the system.
We lasted for an hour and a half. So we have like 2 minutes for questions. Anyone want to ask something?
I had a question, but I do have a comment. I was lucky. I started as a public defender, so I've always been leading out now on bigger cases. And something that we as women are sometimes up against is the fact that we are protecting our clients, representing our clients, and we have sexism directed at us in situations. And I would love to hear all of you give advice to some of the people here on how to manage it. I mean, I know how I manage it now because sometimes if you call someone on their sexism, it can hurt your client, right? You might undermine yourself as a judge, obviously. But I grew up, 30 years ago, I had judges act very sexist towards me, and I had these indigent clients, and I had to deal with a situation that a lot of you have to deal with in firms, but it does translate now that I have well-paid clients. And so I just want to know if any of you have advice for people here on that.
And also practicing in the South, in addition to everything else. In the South is where everyone practices. Not to just make a generalization, but I really think environment on it. To talk about the nice facets of it, it wasn't even necessarily aggressive,